Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that means New Comic Book Day, when neck-bearded weebles wobble to their LCS, their local comic shop, where they stand directly in front of the new release shelf, oblivious to the people who are trying to look at the stuff that's for sale. And for the longest time, I was part of that salmon-spawning nightmare with you people just going to the comic shop on Wednesday, mainly because for the decades when I was most actively doing it, there was no alternative. This was in the days before the regular offering of collected book volumes and graphic novels. This was before those days when if you liked an ongoing series of a comic book, then you had to buy it because you weren't ever going to see it again. You weren't going to see it in any other format, that's for sure. Those days are over. As the comic book audience has aged and grown into slightly more disposable income, the comic book publishers, the superhero comic book publishers of Marvel and DC, have embraced the idea of collecting their stuff, even very recent stuff, in square-bound volumes. And that has usually been what I have bought at comic shops, except recently, if you follow this channel, and of course I'm hoping that you do, you have noticed a stark melodrama unfolding, an addiction story arc of someone falling off the wagon and back into the close orbit of weekly comic books. It's like Beautiful Boy, only with a sexy version of Timothy Chalamet. Slowly but surely, I have been flirting more and more with buying and reading latest issues, despite having weaned myself from them a long time ago. I have a bunch of rationalizations for this at the moment. None of them are really convincing to me. I don't expect anyone to convince you. The main one I'm going with now is that if I like an ongoing series, then I won't buy the graphic novel. I will just have the issues. That's all. I will just have the issues. I will set aside a long cardboard box for the comic books that I like. And I will keep them and revisit them and winnow them and constantly edit them the way I do my book collection. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. But for now, I did go to the local comic shop today, and I got 4 comics, 5 issues, but really 4 comics, as you'll see what I mean. And the horrifying thing about this renewed addiction is that we're going to get on Comic Book Wednesdays. We're going to be able to start to follow stories in individual issues, like this first one, which is Detective Comics 991. Closing in on Detective Comics 1000. It's got one of these variant covers that I mentioned last time that I think are so lovely, where all of the issue's material is down here. There's no big DC logo, no big Detective Comics logo. Instead, you just get the cover art. There you have Batman looking on as one of his signature villains, Two-Face, is flipping his signature coin. Two-Face was the righteous and crusading Gotham City DA Harvey Dent until a criminal threw acid in his face in a courtroom. And one half of his face was disfigured and his mind was unseated. And he became just a great Batman villain who guides all of his activities by the number 2 and also by the dictates of his tossed coin. So if he's got a gun pointed at an innocent hostage, he'll flip his coin, and if it comes up, one side of the coin is scarred. And if it comes up scarred, he shoots the hostage. And if it doesn't, then the Harvey Dent part of his mind does the right thing. Or so we've always thought. But in this issue, this is written by James Robinson, and it is drawn by Carmine Di Giandomenico. Terrific artwork by Giandomenico. Look. Just fantastic stuff. Look at this opening 2-page spread of a bridge in Gotham City. That is just amazing. And in this issue, the writer is following through. We saw the previous issue of this storyline where a terrorist organization is making inroads into Gotham City, and when things look bleak, when they're exchanging gunfire with the Gotham City PD, and when Batman begins to get involved, out of nowhere, it seems like Two-Face wants to help the good guys. And there was a lot of conversation in the first part of this story about how Commissioner Gordon and Batman, who worked with Harvey Dent before his mind was broken, are constantly hoping to rescue Harvey Dent. They're constantly hoping to save him from his two-faced persona. With the idea floated in the first part of the storyline being that maybe that's not possible, and that maybe that hope is naive. And in this issue, this issue is mostly conversation, is mostly one long talk between Batman and Harvey Dent about that hope and about its complexities and about how silly it is and about what Harvey Dent actually thinks about Two-Face. And I found it very, very interesting, fascinating. It helps that the art is so good. So, I mean, in fact, the art being so good saves the whole thing, because otherwise it would be a long conversation. The whole issue is one long conversation. That's not good. The only actual action happens at the end. A member of this terrorist organization is in police custody, and he's talking. He's being interrogated by the police. And he says, who are Cobra's most ardent foes? Cobra is the name of the terrorist organization. The pawns and rooks of Checkmate, which is a counter-terrorism organization. Where are they? Does Checkmate even exist anymore? You tell me. Batman, however, Gotham City, big and dark, so here we are. And the cop who's interrogating him says, huh, I guess that makes sense. Nice you're so verbal, I'll say that. And the suspect says, ha, well, I was a county clerk in Arkansas before I embraced Cobra, so maybe it's the public servant still in me. And the cop says, well, then help me more. Be my buddy. Tell me what you're planning. And the terrorist says, you do realize that I've been doing all of this, talking, telling, hoping that at some point the device in my head would kick in and end my life now that I'm no use to Cobra. And the cop says, how's that working out? Because from where I'm standing, and then the guy says, stand a little closer, detective, and find out. I'm beginning to smell warm copper and yeast like a brewery. They said that would be the first sign of... And then he checks out. Very, very good. Very good stuff. A little bit on the tricky side when a totally stationary, pre-arranged medical suicide is the action highlight of a comic book. But nevertheless, I enjoyed it very much, and this one ends with the story roaring on to the next chapter of what will happen, and whether or not, as I suspect, at the very end, at the peak of the action, Two-Face will turn evil and turn on Commissioner Gordon and Batman one way or another. What a shot in the arm this issue was for me after that last Batman issue that I read. I mean, it wasn't quite the whole of the recovery that I needed, because the previous Batman issue that we read in my last drug memoir, I mean Wednesday Comics, entirely consisted of a fight. And it was unsatisfying because Batman was fighting some one-handed goon. The fight should have been over in 5 seconds. And that was unsatisfying, even though it was entirely action. This one was bordered on unsatisfying because there was no action at all. I like a balance between those two, but one way or another, this was so much better than that last one. Classic Batman villain. Very interesting interrogation of the nature of that villain. Wonderful stuff. Let me move on to another issue whose first part we've already seen. I don't know if it's the first part of the story. I'm coming in late to a lot of these things. But it felt close enough. That previous issue of Wonder Woman, that I showed, was it last Wednesday? Well, it had that beautiful cover. This one also has one of these, I guess they're variant covers. I think Matt at Paperback Junkie said they're variant covers, where the DC stuff is all gone, and all you get is artwork. In this case, a sorcerously possessed Wonder Woman. Terrific. Look at the veins sticking out there. And the reason for the comic book art is that the storyline in the previous issue that we talked about was that Hecate, the goddess of sorcery, is trying to take over the world. She is taking advantage of big quasi-sorcerous events that took place in, I guess, 1 or maybe 2 previous Justice League stories that I didn't follow. She's taking advantage of that unrest in the fabric of magic to reassert control over the magic of the world. And as one character in this book puts it, it will all be chaotic again, and it will all be hers. And Wonder Woman wants to stop her. And one of the ways to do that is we saw in that last issue, is to allow herself to be possessed with enough power to do that, enough of this goddess's power to turn it around on her. Wonder Woman's reasoning being, well, no ordinary human being could stand to be possessed by that much power without it possessing them, but I'm not an ordinary being, so I will give it a try. I will risk it for the sake of the Earth. And as this story opens, it's clear that that didn't work, that Wonder Woman has been, in fact, taken over by this goddess of sorcery and is wreaking havoc. And there's a sorceress group of sort of a Justice League Dark, I guess it's what it's called. Its membership in part confuses me. One of the members is Zatanna, who has been a long-time Justice League member and is a sorceress. She speaks her spells backwards. Another is John Constantine, an inexplicable fan favorite. I've never seen what anyone sees in this character. He's a trench coat wearing Brit who is gritty and real world and has all sorts of off-color humor or whatnot. And those two I at least understand being in a sorceress version of the Justice League. And there's also a dead man, Boston Brand, a dead circus acrobat he was a ghost now and has the ability to possess bodies, to possess someone's body and use it to solve crimes. Those three I understand, but the two other members of this Justice League Dark are Kurt Langstrom, who is Man-Bat in the Batman comics, another Batman villain, in this case a scientist who gives himself an injection that makes him into a werebat with huge wings. Nothing sorceress about it at all. And a talking chimp, the talking chimp from the bygone byways of DC continuity. I don't understand what either one of those is doing in this comic, but I guess in this issue it really doesn't matter. The whole thing revolves around a possessed Wonder Woman. And there's a wonderful scene. I don't know, you won't be able to make out a lot because it's mostly dialogue, but there's a wonderful scene between John Constantine and Zatanna, who are apparently old friends. And he's in the middle of pitying himself when she tells him, "Oh, shut up." And it turns tragic. He reveals to her that he coughs up blood. He reveals to her that he has cancer. I guess this character had cancer once before and got rid of it, and now it has come back. As he puts it in this issue, it's not the kind of cancer you can fight against. But she's hoping for a win from him. And one of the things that he knows how to do is exorcise demons. And he and she trick the possessed Wonder Woman into exactly their crosshairs where they might exorcise the portion of the goddess of sorcery who is currently possessing Wonder Woman. And the twist at the end is that they may have gone too far. That the exorcism that they perform may have killed the person they were hoping to save. And that's the cliffhanger of the issue. Very well done. Can't wait for the next one. Can't believe I'm saying that. Nevertheless, I can't wait to see how the story is called The Witching Hour. And I can't wait to see how it goes. I think, if I remember correctly in this issue, this story is being spun out in a whole bunch of other issues. To be concluded next week in Justice League Dark and Wonder Woman. And I don't know if that's a separate issue, just a standalone thing. I don't read Justice League Dark, and I'm not going to buy an issue of Justice League Dark just to figure out this storyline. But I should mention, right, that the creator. I'm rusty with issue reviews. This is written by James Tynion IV. That's the writer's name. I guess he survived Game of Thrones. And the artist is Emanuela Lupacino, and Emanuela does a wonderful job. This is fantastic stuff. It varies very, very effectively from big epic moments to touching little personal moments. Not every artist can do that. And then the next one that I got, it caught my eye. I know nothing about it because I'm assuming that the bigger canvas you get in terms of DC Comics, the comics with the biggest canvases and story arcs will be the ones that are most affected by all of these big stories that I didn't follow and that I don't know anything about. So this caught my eye. It's called Justice League Odyssey. And this is number 2. That is a great Terry Dodson cover. And number 2 caught my eye. So, oh God, I've got it bad. bought #1 as well, another fantastic Terry Dodson cover, because I figured I wouldn't understand #2 unless I read #1, and I'm going to have a hard time understanding these anyway, because I'm sure they rely on events that I don't know anything about. And sure enough, in the issue #1, the characters make mention of the fact that that the source wall has been shattered and has thrown the DC universe into chaos. The source wall was a big, gigantic MacGuffin in Jack Kirby's idiotic New Gods saga. It's just full of so many lazy bagatelle concepts that you can make them into anything, and that has proved very attractive to a whole generation of new writers who just make free use of Kirby's concepts that he came up with for the New Gods. One of the biggest of those concepts is right on this cover, and that is the character of Apocalypse. The kind of big amorphous bad guy that I guess DC Comics really needed and didn't have. I guess so Kirby can be credited for that. Lots of writers come along. They've done all sorts of great stuff with Apocalypse, with the character Darkseid, who is the absolute ruler of the planet Apocalypse and who wants to destroy everything for no clearly defined reason. But that's okay. That he and Thanos are very much the same kind of character. And as this first issue opens, there is one of the results of this big storyline. What was it? Justice League No Justice is one of the big storylines that I missed. I don't know anything about it. But one of the results of it is that there's a ghost sector in space that's embroiled in energy storms, and that is populated by a whole bunch of planets that were stolen and reduced in size. I think by Brainiac, the Superman villain Brainiac, but also the people of the planet Kolu, where Brainiac is from, are indicted as well. It seems like they had I'm not clear on the details because I haven't read anything that leads up to this. But the planet Kolu is mentioned quite a bit. Kolu, of course, is near and dear to my heart because it is the home of the Legion of Superheroes member, Brainiac 5. It's a planet of green-skinned super geniuses. And apparently this ghost sector is full of stolen worlds. There's another great two-page spread here where you see the stolen worlds. And the Guardians of the Universe. This is a bit longer background, but the Guardians of the Universe in DC continuity are these short blue aliens who live on the planet Oa and run the Green Lantern Corps and make the rules. They're sort of the justice system, and the Green Lantern Corps are the police that they employ to sort of keep a tenuous stretch of order in the universe. And they have set up a barrier to prevent anyone from going into this ghost sector. And that barrier is being patrolled by a Green Lantern called Jessica Cruz. I'm not familiar with this Green Lantern. She appears to be human, but she appears to have a big Green Lantern tattoo on her face. And she's bored. As issue #1 starts, she is bored patrolling this ghost sector and wishes for a little activity. And of course, you got to be careful what you wish for. She immediately gets it because the ghost sector is invaded by a spaceship that is being piloted by two members of what used to be the Teen Titans, Cyborg and Starfire, two old teammates from the Marv Wolf and George Perez relaunch of Teen Titans in the 80s. Since then, Cyborg has gone on to become a mainstay of the Justice League. And I think that's why this is called Justice League. Otherwise, well, no, I guess that the Jessica Cruz Green Lantern was also a member of the Justice League at one point. But anyway, Cyborg and Starfire felt a call to come to this ghost sector. They felt something pulling them to come to this ghost sector. So they take off in this spaceship commandeered from the Hall of Justice. And they have a stowaway, Azrael, an armored human who briefly took over the mantle of Batman once upon a time, 30 years ago in a comic store. I guess he's still around. He's was raised by a fanatical religious order, and he is portrayed as borderline insane. And the group of them, through a rapid-fire series of events, Starfire, Cyborg, the Jessica Cruz Green Lantern and Azrael crash land on a planet in this ghost sector. And there they meet a young Darkseid. I don't quite know. I haven't followed the previous big storyline, so I don't know why Darkseid isn't his usual gigantic self. Instead, he seems... there's actually a picture of him. We get a good reveal in this issue. He seems younger, slimmer, and to have consulted with a better tailor. And he tells them that he has all sorts of hidden information that they need to the nature of what's going on in this ghost sector. And one of the fascinating things about the storyline is that part of what's going on in the ghost sector seems to be that the inhabitants of those stolen and now lost worlds are worshipping gods that look just like our characters. And no one can figure out how that would be or what the reason for it is. But this issue just launches you straight into that story. I admit I did no Googling and still felt like I was being told a nice, coherent story, which is great. In fact, I really liked the big stakes, and I loved how... Let me give you the credits here. I loved how this writer writes the relationship between both Cyborg and Starfire, who are old friends. They've known each other forever, since they were teenagers. And also Cyborg and Jessica Cruz, who I guess were part of the Justice League briefly at the same time. And Jessica Cruz's character, the Green Lantern character herself here, is wonderful. It's something I've mentioned in these Comics Wednesday installments before, which is that I love it when comic book superheroes talk the way you would expect them to if they'd had their own experiences. Instead of talking like characters in a sitcom, or instead of talking like, cardboard figures. I like it when there's actual dialogue. And we get that in both cases, both between the female Green Lantern and between Cyborg and Starfire. But this is written by Joshua Williamson. And it's drawn by Stepton Sejic. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but the artwork's really good. And so is the writing. And when I finished with this first issue, I had to get the second issue, which is just continues the story and does so in a fantastic way. By the end of the second issue, the stakes have been raised considerably, to the point where I want to read more. Even though I know that Justice League Odyssey, it's not Justice League, and it's a clearly circumscribed storyline. In other words, this is clearly being written and drawn at the pace of the graphic novel that it will be down the line. And I already know that. So I guess now that I know that I like this story, I will just read it in this form. That's all. I will just read it in this form. I won't bother myself. When the graphic novel shows up, I'll say, that's a collection of something that I really liked, but I won't feel a need to buy it again. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. And then the last comic that I got today also has one of those variant covers, but in this case I didn't get it. In this case I got the normal cover with the big logo and everything, because the normal cover is drawn by a legend, and it is astonishingly beautiful. It's Action Comics number 1004, and because it's shiny, the cover is shiny, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it justice, but this is Superman smiling down on a passing flock of geese high up in the air, just sort of acting like a traffic guard. You can almost hear him saying, I'll step out of your way, enjoy your flight. It's just a wonderful, almost mythic moment. I absolutely love it. And it's drawn by Steve Rude. You comics fans out there may know that name. Longtime comic fans will certainly know that name, because he was the artist on one of the only great superhero comics that was not made by DC or Marvel. He is the artist and co-creator of the great Nexus, the superhero who kills mass murderers. And the backlog of Nexus, oh my God, it is so good. It is just so good. The Nexus has been around for 35 years, and the artwork has always been great. The storytelling's always been great. The character is just wonderful. Same creators, the writer and artist team, have done Nexus forever in one form or another, depending on where the money is, who's got a contract, whether or not fans are interested. Someday, there will be a big, beautiful, hardcover, remastered volume of collecting Nexus. I long for that day. As it is, I have Nexus reprints and volumes all over this place, from all different eras. But one way or another, Steve Root doesn't draw the inside of this because he's a slow worker, and that would never work. He would never do a monthly comic. What we have here instead is, this is written by Brian Michael Bendis, and it's drawn by Ryan Sook, and he does a very good job. I am, again, coming into the middle of a story, but I know the big story that launched this particular story, and that big story was grounded in horrible, horrible writing decisions. A big reveal, a big dramatic thing that happened a while ago was that it was revealed that Superman's father, Jor-El, survived the destruction of Krypton, and it drove him partially insane. So he's a quasi-villain. It's an absolutely ridiculous idea. I'm waiting for the day when a new writer comes along and says, it's not him, it was all a lie. This is, of course, Jor-El died with Krypton. Of course, Jor-El died with Superman's mother. Of course, Jor-El is not alive. We made this mistake once before. Superman writers made this mistake once before. Every once in a while, for a convenient plot goose, not that kind of goose, for a convenient plot gimmick, reveal another Kryptonian. Until finally until at one point in the late 1960s, one acid-voiced fan from rural Iowa sent a scathing letter to DC Comics saying that, by my count, no one actually died when Krypton exploded because we have 80 million survivors. When Superman was revamped a long time ago, was that he was the only survivor of the planet Krypton. And then, of course, inevitably you get Supergirl. And then you get the Phantom Zone, which is full of Kryptonian survivors. They were banished to the Phantom Zone for their crimes, and so they survived when the planet was destroyed. And you get a whole bunch of other people. I don't like it. I don't think that Jor-El should still be alive. But one way or another, if I didn't like that, I certainly didn't like the ensuing story in which Jor-El appears and demands that he take Superman's son, John Kent, a little boy, John Kent, that he take him away into space to do whatever, and nothing is clearly defined. And Lois Lane, Superman's wife, decides to go with the boy. In an issue that I still don't understand. I've reread it 3 times. I don't understand why Superman didn't just say no. Who on Earth, or anywhere else in the universe, would say yes to that? What husband, what father would say such a thing, would allow such a thing? Superman does. I don't know why. I have to assume that a lot of this comes from buried places in the writer's psyche. But one way or another, Lois Lane returns. And in this issue, Superman finds her. And they meet and talk. There's a wonderful moment where he descends onto the sidewalk and they meet. And in what might be a nod to, I don't even know what it's a nod to. I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to know. But immediately after they meet, they head to bed, and they stay in bed, and they talk, and they have a meaningful conversation, and then they remember, oh wait, we're in bed, so they have an interlude again, and then they come back and talk some more. It's a weird preoccupation on their part. It's beautifully drawn, but it's a weird preoccupation, especially since during the intervals of conversation in between their reunion in the bedroom, Lois Lane is telling Clark Kent all sorts of things that should get him out of the mood. They should stop such scenes from happening. I don't understand why these characters are being made to act so bizarrely inhuman. Lois Lane tells him that yes, she is back, that Superman's father is a piece of work, that he's not a nice guy, that John, their son, is back as well, and that once he left Earth in the care of Jor-El, he hit puberty. And Superman, Clark Kent is saying, what? And Lois saying, no, it was good for him. Obviously, because we're going to get a teenage Superboy, which will ruin the dynamic of this whole thing, was that Clark Kent left superhearing, married Lois Lane, and they had a child, and they were a normal American family. A happy, well-adjusted American family. And we got some issues like that, and they were wonderful. Now, now the whole point of this issue is Lois Lane telling Clark Kent that they aren't normal and they never have been. She wants to dedicate herself to writing. He wants to dedicate himself to, as she puts it, saving everything he can get his hands on. They aren't breaking up. They are still husband and wife. They are still a couple. But there has to be, according to her, there has to be a new dynamic involved here, looser, not quite the Norman Rockwell normal American family. And Superman isn't sure about that. But at one point, when they're talking about it, he's called away. Another great 2-page spread here. He's called away for all sorts of emergencies, and when he gets back, he has to ask her, what were we talking about? And she sardonically says, we were talking about how normal our relationship is, which helps to bring home the point that maybe they should try a different, less conventional kind of relationship. No idea what any of this means. I have no idea what the writer actually has in mind. Are they going to swing? Is it going to be an open relationship? But the thing, I mean, at one point he says, well, I might be able to get used to this. I feel like a better version of myself. And then there's a wonderful moment at the end where they're embracing. And suddenly in the classic Superman idea, they're embracing and then they're high, high above Metropolis. And we see them, two figures in the distance. And one of the figures says, don't let go. And you think, okay, it's Lois Lane telling Superman not to let go of her because she'll fall to her death. But the other person responds, I won't, Clark. That's really good. That's, in fact, a very good encapsulation of the relationship between these two. Superman needs Lois Lane. But the thing that bothered me, the gigantic thing that sticks out here that is not addressed in any way, Superman is the father of a little boy. He's not just Lois Lane's husband. He's the father of a little boy. He was there when his son was born. He helped his son to be born. The doctor who was in the room during that great scene didn't trust his own hands. So Superman delivers his own son and has been there every minute ever since. Here, his wife comes back from outer space with a half-crazed Kryptonian who claims to be Superman's father and says, I need to redefine the parameters of our relationship, and also our son has hit puberty, but he's fine. We don't see him. He's not in this issue, and nowhere in this issue does Clark Kent say, can I see him? Take me to him. Where is he? Where is my son? Clark Kent never says that in this issue. He's busy Pulitzer-prizing his wife, not once but twice. He's busy going on action calls when anyone else could handle them, and he's busy, hugging her. But he never asked to see his son. I don't understand it. I thought the issue was extremely well done. It had winning writing beats to it. The artwork was really good. The cover is, of course, anthologizable. It's an anthology worthy. But I don't know what to do when a character that I have been following forever misses something basic like that. It's so basic that you took me a while after I was finished with the issue to realize how wrong it was that the father of a young boy would learn that his boy was back in town and not want to see him. So one way or another, that was a bit frustrating. I will certainly read the next issue. Of course, now I'm in addition to being hooked on Action Comics again, I'm now morbidly curious to know if young John Kent will ever appear and what he'll look like. One way or another. So it was a weird emotional dropped ball in this issue, which I'm not used to. And, because Superman, despite the fact that he's an alien from a dead world, is usually the emotional center. He's usually the emotional gravity of comic books. In this case, he's hit with a major alteration to his personal life, and he doesn't even seem curious about it. I mean, I won't harp on it any longer, but I ask you, what father of a young boy who's been separated from his boy and his wife would reconnect with his wife and be more concerned with getting between the sheets with her than with finding out where his boy is and how he is? What father would think that way? Anyway, so that was my week in comics. It was again completely foursquare DC basics. I did not even look at the Marvel comics that were on sale. Instead, I got the Justice League, or at least a variation of it. I'm certainly willing to play fast and loose since I don't know anything about the Justice League right now. I'm perfectly happy for this to be it. And I'm wondering what the Odyssey means. I'm wondering if it's a callback to Jim Starlin's Cosmic Odyssey, which was also featured a hodgepodge of characters. It also featured Starfire, and it also featured Darkseid. So I'm wondering if it's some sort of callback to that. But one way or another, I got Action Comics and Detective Comics, which is where DC Comics started. I got Wonder Woman, I got the Justice League, and I enjoyed them all quite a bit. Enough, certainly, to urge me to go back to the comic shop next Wednesday. Oh my God. I don't know if that will happen. Once again, I will report back if it does. So I will wrap this up. We will get better at these comic book reviews because they can't all be 40 minutes long. But I will wrap this up and go back to ordinary bookish content. Thank you, BookTube.